الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والذين جاهدوا فينا لنهدينهم سبلنا سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. Alhamdulillah, every year this is the this is that time of the year when in Pakistan we have the examinations which are known as Wifaq examinations that are conducted throughout the country. Alhamdulillah, thousands of students in different seminaries, different madaris. Right now, as we speak, they're preparing for their examinations, and inshallah, within a few weeks, they will have their examinations. And we make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all the mihnat, the mujahidah, the efforts that the students are making. in preparing for those examinations. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant all of them the nur of ilm. May Allah ta'ala grant them ilm nafi. We have to understand that this is a very big opportunity from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has linked us with knowledge. Whether those who are studying here in Pakistan or whether those who are studying abroad in their own countries and their own cities in different parts of the world. This is a big blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a big inam and a favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala links someone, connects a person with the ilm of deen. Ilm of dunya is something which every person can attain, every person can get, it's available. However, the ilm of deen is something which a person cannot get on their own. It's only the special rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses and selects a person, and only those people are able to study this deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is that special. And when a person studies this deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when they acquire this ilm, the sacred knowledge, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept izzat in this ilm. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept honor in this ilm. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept a solution for all our problems in this ilm deen. For that person who is connected to this ilm, that person who does khidmat of this ilm, and that person who practices this ilm and then teaches it to other people, this ilm is nurun. This ilm is sufficient to that person, sufficient for that individual, sufficient for the needs of that person in this dunya, and of course sufficient for that person in Yawm al-Qiyamah, in Akhirah. This is an incredible blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-ilmu nurun. And if you look, we think that izzat and the solution to our problems, they lie in if we have a degree, if we have a job, if I have a career. Actually, the solution to our problems, we haven't understood this. The solution really lies in a life of taqwa, and to be able to lead a life of taqwa, you need the ilm of the deen. To be able to know what those things are which is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that we can do those amal, and know which things are displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that we can stay away from them. When a person practices that ilm, they lead a life of taqwa. That's the solution to all our issues, and that's the key to all khair in this dunya and akhirah. Alhamdulillah, if you look at our history, our akabareen, our salaf salihin, the sahaba ikram and tabi'een, they understood this reality. The sahaba ikram, they understood this reality, that this ilm is najat, that this ilm is their izzah, will give them honor and izzah. And that's why they spend their whole lives trying to acquire this ilm and live this ilm and then teach this ilm. Spend their whole lives in the khidmat of this ilm of deen. And that is what the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, that through this ilm Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives izzat to a person. There are so many examples of people who in a worldly sense were nothing, and in terms of their worldly qabiliyat, they had no rank, they had no wealth, no status, no honor, nothing, and yet they learned the ilm, they studied ilm deen, they became talib ilm, seekers of ilm, and because of this nisbat, this relation, this connection with ilm, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them, Allah ta'ala gave them izzah, and Allah ta'ala made them such big scholars that the kings of their time used to come and they would sit in the company of these ulama. Allahu Akbar Kabira. Imam Abu Yusuf rahmatullah alayh, when he was a talib ilm, a student, he once came to in the khidmat of Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayh. His mother had sent him to go to a what you call dhobi, right? Person who cleans clothes. and she wanted her son to learn this art of cleaning clothes. But Imam Abu Yusuf rahmatullah alayhi, he went to Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, and he became his student. Mother, she was upset. Said, Abu Yusuf, I sent you to learn this art of washing clothes, and you are going and studying. So she said that I want to meet your teacher. So she came, she met Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, and she was very upset. So Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi heard her complaint, and then he said to the mother that I'm teaching your son a skill that at one point he will be able to drink, which at that time was a very precious, drink, a very, you can say, very rare drink which the kings used to drink, called faluda, a pista faluda. Faluda, some kind of liquid, a sharbat, which was made out of pista and faluda. See that he said that to the mother, that I'm teaching your child this skill, and eventually your child will be able to reach that maqam, that rank, where he will be able to drink this sharbat, this very special sharbat. So the mother, she said that maybe Imam Sahib is saying this for my tasalli, from just to console me. She didn't accept it in her heart. But since Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah said this to her, so she just went back. She couldn't say anything in front of him. Khair, she became mutmain, she became content, came back. And Imam Abu Yusuf rahmatullah, he continued his journey of knowledge. And eventually a day came when Imam Abu Yusuf rahmatullah, he became the chief justice of that town, chief justice of that region. And he himself says that at that time, once the king, the ruler, Khalifa Harun Rashid, he came to me and said that, Hazrat, I've made something for you and I want to present this to you, please accept this from me. And when I drank that, it was very delicious. So I asked him that, what is this? And he said that, Hazrat, I'm giving this to you, this is a very special kind of liquid which is made only at very special occasions. But you have such a maqam in the law, in the rank of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, such an ilmi maqam, that I wish to give this drink to you every day. So Imam Abu Yusuf rahmatullah asked him that, what is it? What's the name of this drink? And Harun Rashid said that this is that piste ka faluda. That same faluda, that same sharbat, which is made out of pista. And then he says that I remembered what Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah, he had said to my mother on that day, that I'm going to teach your child that honor, that skill, that craft, that ilm, because of which he will be able to drink this sharbat, this very special sharbat, every single day of his life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a razik. Allah is the Rabb, Allah is our Malik, He is our cherisher, our nourisher and sustainer. For those people who attach themselves with the deen, with ilm-e-deen, Allah Ta'ala takes care of their needs. Allah Ta'ala takes care of these necessities of life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them izzah. We just need to have more reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We just need to keep our gaze on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, have reliance on Allah, i'timad on Allah. Allah is our Rabb. Our job does not provide for us. Our degrees do not provide for us. Our career does not provide for us. Allah is our provider. This should be our iman. This is our iman. We need to learn this lesson, relearn this lesson, repeat this lesson over and over and over again. Because many times it happens that a person is so caught up in this world. This world is Darul Asbab. It's a place of sabab. Yes, you're supposed to make use of asbab. I'm not saying that don't apply. Don't apply for the job. Put your job applications. Make your CV. Get a career. Apply, but save your iman. Save your iman. Save your aqidah. My job will not provide for me. My job is not provider. My career will not provide a risk to me. My provider is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The razik is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a very important that we have to protect our iman. That Allah is our Rabb. Allah is our nurturer. Allah is our nourisher. Allah is our cherisher. these degrees, this wealth, this this education, this intelligence, whatever honor or these arts and crafts, these skills that I know, none of them will provide a rizq to me. None of them are my Rabb. None of them will take care of me. My caretaker is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of these things are asbab. I have to make use of them. So I'm not negating that. You have to make use of them. But my nazar will be on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I have to apply for the job, but job will not provide a rizq to me. Allah will provide a rizq to me. So Allah, we have to keep our gaze on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the real, if we have any problems or issues in our life, the reason is because we don't have that kamil tawajjuh towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't have that kamil tawajjuh ilallah. We don't have that inabat ilallah, ruju ilallah. If we had that kamil ruju ilallah, inabat ilallah, tawajjuh ilallah, always in every situation in our life, if our gaze was directed towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah is Allah. Allah would have been sufficient for us. Allah is sufficient for us. Allah is enough for us. Allah is enough. Alaysa Allahu bikafin abada? That isn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sufficient for His servants? Allah is sufficient for every single need that we have. And that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, gives us a zabata, a principle, few words. Few words, but the meaning is extremely profound and deep. What is that principle? Allah says, Huwa yatawalla salihin, that Allah is that being who is the guardian. Allah is the guardian of the righteous. Allah is the caretaker of the righteous. Yani if we become those who are righteous, Allah will take care. Allah will become our guardian. Allah will take care of these masala of rizq. Allah will take care of the masala of this dunya. Allah will take care of the masala of the needs and necessities of this dunya. Allah is the guardian of the pious. Huwa yatawalla salihin. Allah was that being who guarded Amma Maryam alayhi salatu wassalam when she was secluded, when she secluded herself in our hujra doing ibadah ruju ilallah. Allah used to guard her. Allah used to provide for her. Allah gave her rizq, gave her fruits which were out of season. Allah was the guardian of Amma Hajara alayhi salatu wassalam when she was in a valley with her infant child, a valley, no vegetation, no water to drink or use, nothing, a barren valley, arid valley. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was the guardian. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave her rizq, Allah gave her water, Allah provided for her. Huwa yatawalla salihin. Yani the gaze, Allah is the guardian of the pious. This should be our iman. We have to learn and relearn this sabak so that we are focused on Allah and Allah alone. We should have reliance on Allah, i'timad on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All we have to do is just become amongst the pious, as-salihin, then Allah will take care. Allah is the guardian. Umar bin Abdul Aziz rahmatullah alayh, he is known as Umar Isani, a very righteous, pious, just ruler. People give examples of him that he was like Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu in his governorship. So just, so honorable. He had 11 sons and he led a life of extreme poverty. And he made all of his 11 sons, religious, gave them religious education. They became quote unquote Maulvi, Hafiz, Alim, all of them scholars of the Deen of Islam. But his financial position was not so strong. So when the time came for him to leave this world in his last illness, he was on his bed and a person came to meet him and said that Umar bin Abdul Aziz, that look, you have made all your 11 sons Maulvi. And if you had made one of them something else, some worldly person, some worldly profession, they could have supported you, they could have been with you at this time, joined their shoulder with your shoulder. So when that person said a few sentences like that, Umar bin Abdul Aziz rahmatullah alayh, he was lying down, but he stood up, he sat down on the bed. And then he said that, listen, yes, I have 11 sons. If I have done proper tarbiyah of my sons, then I know Allah promises in the Quran, Huwa yatawalla salihin, that Allah is the guardian of the pious. I don't need to worry about their future. Allah will be their guardian. If they are amongst the pious, if I did the proper tarbiyah, made them righteous and pious, Allah will be their guardian, Allah will take care. However, if I haven't done their proper tarbiyah, or if they are not amongst the pious, if they rebel against the commands of Allah, then I have no need for them. I have no need for them, they have no need for me. And he said this and then he passed away. When he passed away, the next Khalifa ruler came in and he was looking for governors for different regions, different provinces of the Muslim Empire. And after searching, he came up, he found no one else more pious, no one else more fit and competent for the job than the eldest son of Umar bin Abdul Aziz rahmatullah alayh. He made him the governor of one region. Then he made the second son the governor of the second region. And hatta a time came when there were 11 provinces, and the 11 sons of Umar bin Abdul Aziz were the governors of those 11 provinces of the Muslim Empire. Huwa yatawalla salihin. Allah is the guardian of the pious. All we have to do is to become amongst the pious, amongst the salihin. Allah will take care. So we don't need to worry too much about this dunya. We need to worry about our akhirah. We need to worry about the sins that we are doing. We need to worry about removing those sins from our life. We need to worry about making tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the real worry. We need to worry about being steadfast on the faraiz and wajibat, on excelling in doing amalu salih. That's the real worry, that's the real mujahidah, that's the real struggle. If we can do this, then rest, the other things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care. Huwa yatawalla salihin. And for this we need to have ilm-e-deen. Ilm-e-deen is that roshni, it's that light, it's that illumination which will keep us on the right path. So that's why whoever joins themselves with ilm, this is one way to become amongst the righteous. That we learn ilm and practice this ilm of deen. Sometimes people say, governments, different regions, different countries, they have these schemes and government schemes that we want to bring the madrasa graduates, and make them part of the government institutions, that government will provide for them. Government will have these schemes for them. Subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the provider for such students of ilm. Their example is like that of a prince. There was a prince who was traveling on his horse, and he passed by and he saw there was a big line, and people would come, and there was a person who was giving some money to each person. So someone said to him that, why don't you also join that line? You will also get some money. So the prince, he smiled and said that I am the son of the king. I don't need to join this line. I will get money from somewhere else. I'll get the wealth from somewhere else. I don't need to join this line. People who do work of deen, people who study the ilm-e-deen, they are like that prince. Their example is that of the prince. They are the prince and the princess of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are the prince and the princess in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah gives them rizq in a very special way. They don't need to stand in these ordinary lines of the dunya. They don't need to stand and be pushed around in the dunya. They don't need to be embarrassed and disgraced in front of the dunya, to keep knocking on these different doors of the dunya. Allah gives them rizq like the princess, like the prince. Allah is their provider. Allah gives them rizq. And Allah gives them rizq with izzat and with honor. Yes. That's the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran. Huwa yatawalla salihin. Allah is the guardian of the pious. Allah will give them rizq. Sahaba Ikram, they used to get the rizq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And people who follow in the footsteps of the Sahaba, Allah will give them rizq in the same way. So what we have to do is just do work of deen. And don't worry too much about the dunya. Don't worry too much about the dunya. Be a shade for other people. Be a shade, become a shade for other people. Every person is thinking about their own selves. There's nothing special about that. If you have, you can have 5 kids, 7 kids, 10 kids. Taking care of those 10 kids, that's something every person is doing. But if you become a shade and you help other people, you serve other people, do khidmat, that's something special in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Become like a shajar, a tree. Hmm? Shajar, the word shajar means something which is burning. Shajar, the output of the shajar is being burnt by the rays of the sun. But it's being burnt by the rays of the sun, but itself the shajar is providing shade to the travelers, to the passerbys. You have to become the shade. Help other people, serve other people, do khidmat of other people. Taking care of 6, 5, 7 kids, that's something every person can do. But to do khidmat of khalke khuda, to do khidmat to serve the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to serve them in the best of ways to save their iman, to build their iman, to do work of deen, that's the best khidmat that a person can do. That's something which is valuable in the sight of Allah. It's something which is honorable in the sight of Allah. This risk Allah will give anyway. This roti, salan, Allah will give anyway. So we shouldn't worry about this too much. Worry about these amal. Worry about our deen. Worry about our ilm. This is the real worry. And keep our gaze focused on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Have inabat ilallah. Allah will give us rizq. And Allah will also give us honor and izzat in this world. With ilm comes izzat. With ilm comes izzat. We have to remember this principle. So many examples. Hazrat Salim rahmatullah alayhi was a very big muhaddis. He was a slave who was sold for 300 dirham. But then he acquired ilm deen, and he reached a particular rank, a position, where the kings of their time, the kings of his time, they would come and sit in his gathering, and they would want to meet him. Once a king, the ruler, he came to meet Hazrat Salim rahmatullah alayhi, and before entering, he sought permission. Can I come in? May I have the permission to enter? And Hazrat Salim rahmatullah alayhi, he was busy in some ilmi activity, and he excused himself. So the king, the ruler, he went away without meeting. Allahu Akbar Kabira. Hazrat Salim rahmatullah alayhi, he sold as a slave for 300 dirham. But because of ilm, he reached that position, that maqam, where the Badshah, the rulers of the time, they would stand at their door, knock on the door, seek permission, and when they wouldn't get that permission, they would go away empty-handed. 300 dirham. He was sold for 300 dirham, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bought him for such an incredible price. He was extremely worthy and precious in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayhi, once he went to a barber's shop to have his hair cut, and he was wearing some ordinary clothing. So the person saw that Imam Shafi, this person is coming, his clothes are also dirty, so he didn't expect this person will have any money. So he said that I can't cut your hair. So when he refused, Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayhi, he said that I want to give you some hadiyah. He took out 300 dinars and gave it to him. And that person is stunned, he is shocked. 300 dinars. And Imam Shafi rahmatullah said to him that I don't even want you to cut my hair. I'm going. Take this as a hadiyah and I'm leaving. And that person is amazed, he is shocked. And then while leaving, Imam Shafi rahmatullah said to him that yes, I have these clothes on top of me. These clothes have no worth. These clothes are very ordinary, they have no price. And however, the jism, the body, the ruh which is inside these clothes, that ruh, even if you search for such a ruh in the whole world, you will not be able to find such a ruh. You will not be able to find such a person. Ilm gives izzat. Ilm gives honor. Ilm gives a maqam to a person. There are many ulama who used to be unknown, but this ilm raised their status. They were unknown, unappreciated, lowly, but then they became ulama, they became people of ilm, had a nisbat with ilm, and because of that ilm, Allah gave them izzat. Ata ibn Abu Rabah rahmatullah alayh, he was a person who was black, and he was not pleasant to look at. In fact, the ulama have said about him that he was wakana ata'u aswadu. He was black. A'waru. He was one-eyed. Aftasu. He had a snub-nosed. And the nose was also not proper. It was a snub kind of a nose. Ashallu. He was lame. A'raju. And he was limping. He couldn't walk properly. When he would walk, he had to limp. Thumma ama. And finally, towards the end of his life, he also became blind. Ata ibn Abu Rabah rahmatullah alayh, he was black, one-eyed, snub-nosed, lame and limping, and finally also became blind. However, he was a very trustworthy narrator of hadith. He was an incredible jurist, a scholar, a narrator of many hadiths. And he was extremely, particularly most knowledgeable about the manasik of Hajj, the rules of pilgrimage. At his time, there was a ruler by the name of Suleiman ibn Abdul Malik, who was Khalifa at that time. He came to meet him once with his two sons, and he asked Hazrat Ata rahmatullah alayh about some masala about Hajj, about the rites of pilgrimage. And Hazrat Ata rahmatullah alayh, he answered those questions while turning his face away from them. He didn't even look at them. And then the Khalifa, he was humiliated. He felt embarrassment that he is the Khalifa and this person, he's answering the question, not even turning his face in his direction. So khair, he got the answers, and then he turned around and started leaving. And then the Khalifa, he said to his two sons, Ajib, he said to his two sons, Khuma, that, oh my two sons, get up, stand up, wala taneya, don't be lazy, wala takasala fi talabil ilm, don't be lazy and lethargic in seeking ilm, fama ansa dhullana bayna yaday hadha al-abd al-aswadi, that I shall never ever forget this humiliation and embarrassment in front of this black slave. Allahu Akbar Kabira. Get up, don't be lazy and lethargic in seeking knowledge. I shall never forget this day. The humiliation, embarrassment, zillat I had in front of this black slave. The Khalifas, the rulers, the kings used to come and they would sit in front of such ulama. This was the izzat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them. Countless examples. Unknown people, unappreciated people, lowly people. Because of nisbat with ilm, Allah gave them a maqam. Al-Hasan al-Basri rahmatullah alayh, he was a slave of Zayd bin Sabit, ghulam. And when he would walk, people said that they wouldn't even recognize him. No one would even be able to tell that he is such a big alim, such a big mufti and such a big faqih. But Allah gave him such an izzat. Such an izzat that when he used to speak, such a maqam that when he used to speak, people said that this is that person whose speech resembles that of the Anbiya alayhi salam. This was the rank, the rutba, maqam that Allah gave him, Hasan al-Basri. Very famous alim. Ibn Sirin rahmatullah alayh, who was also a freed slave, but Allah gave him izzat because of his ilm. People said that we used to see Muhammad ibn Sirin in the marketplace, and no one saw him except that they used to mention Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They would look at Ibn Sirin and they would be reminded about Allah. Allahu Akbar. So there is a shan, ilm gives a person izzat. So we should understand that being attached to this ilm, this is a very big favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a very big favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need to value this ilm. We need to understand the importance of this ilm. We need to understand the azmat of this ilm of deen. Al ulama warasatul anbiya. The ulama, the scholars are the heirs of the anbiya, heirs of the prophets. Allah loves such people. Allah is willing to accept their du'as. Their du'as have barakah. Allah gives them rizq. Allah gives them izzah. Allah gives them barakah. Their du'as are accepted. Sultan Mahmud Ghaznavi Rahmatullah alayh, he was a ruler of Indian subcontinent many years ago. Once there are three things that came to his heart. Three questions for which he required an answer. First, he was the son of Subuk Tugin, someone called Subuk Tugin, but he had some doubts that whether I'm really the son of Subuk Tugin or not. Now, Subuk Tugin was not a king, he was a general, a soldier, and later he became a king. So Mahmud Ghaznavi was a bit unsure that was he really my father or not. That was the first question. Second thing that came to his heart was that there are so many ways of doing khidmat of deen, that so many aspects of deen. Which is the best aspect of deen? Which is the best division, the most afzal, better division of deen? Yani people within the ummah, who are the most a'la people? Who are they? That was the second question. And thirdly, that he felt that a long time has passed and I haven't been blessed with the ziyarah of Nabi alayhi salatu wassalam. So that was his desire, third desire, that I wish I could be blessed with the ziyarah of Nabi alayhi salatu wassalam in my dream. So one day he was a ruler, so he was roaming around the city and he saw that there was a student of ilm who was studying outside on the street under the sunlight. So he asked him that, why aren't you studying inside the madrasa and the masjid? He said, in the masjid there is no proper arrangement for lighting, and hence I'm not able to study, that's why I'm outside. So he said that no, you should go inside, I will make arrangement for the lighting. I will make arrangement, you should not sit here, you should go inside and sit in the comfort of the madrasa, the masjid, and study there. I take upon myself this responsibility of making arrangement for the lighting. When he said this, that student became very happy, and immediately he made dua to Allah Ta'ala that, oh Allah, that fulfill the desires of this person. He gave a dua that Allah fulfill the duas of this person. Khair, Mahmud Ghaznavi, he came back home. That night he went to sleep, and in a dream he was blessed with the ziyarah of Nabi alayhi salatu wassalam. He was blessed with the ziyarah of the Prophet sallallahu. The Prophet sallallahu came to him and said that, O son of Subuk Tugin, O son of Subuk Tugin, you have honored my waris, you have honored my inheritors. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you izzah in this dunya and akhirah. May Allah give you izzah, honor in this dunya and in akhirah. Allahu Akbar. Yani the dua that student made, the barakah of that dua was such an incredible barakah that all the three wishes of Mahmud Ghaznavi were fulfilled. All three wishes were fulfilled. First, he was blessed with the ziyarah of Nabi alayhi salatu wassalam. Second, whatever doubts he had about his nisbah, about his father, those were dispelled, because the Prophet ﷺ said that, O son of Subuk Tugin. So he gained surety that Subuk Tugin is my father. And third, he also understood that the ulama are the real afzal people. The Prophet ﷺ said that they are my waris, they are my warasa. You showed respect and honor to my waris. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant you izzat in dunya and akhirah. So the du'as are also full of barakah. Allah accepts the du'as of such people. Now the way a person gets this ilm in our deen is through adab. Yani the door of ilm opens for that individual who has adab. Without adab, person will not be able to get the nur of ilm. And adab is a very holistic concept. Adab for the ilm itself. We should have adab for the kitabs that we study. We should have adab for the ulama, adab for the teachers who teach us deen, adab for our mashayikh. We should become people of adab. We should read. As students, all of us should be reading. There's a very good book called Ta'limul Muta'allim. Ta'limul Muta'allim, you should read that book. All the people who are listening, they should read that book. The etiquettes of being the seeker of knowledge. The etiquettes of being the seeker of knowledge, Ta'limul Muta'allim. For those who can understand and read Urdu, there is another very good book, Ba Adab Ba Nasib. Be courteous and be blessed. Ba Adab Ba Nasib. When you read these books will tell us what adab is, how we can become people of adab. And this adab is extremely essential. Without this, there is no way a person can get the nur of ilm. Yes, you can get information. You can get a lot of information. You might be able to memorize the girdan, memorize the conjugations, and be able to recite them very quickly. But you won't know what you're supposed to do, what Allah wants you to do at this point. We won't get that Qubuliya in Allah. We will have a lot of information but no ilm, not the nur of ilm. Adab gives us ilm. And with ilm, we also need number 3, zikr. First is adab, number 2, ilm, and then the zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you have zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through a daily practice, a daily regimen of the zikr, of the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, can only there be ikhlas in that individual. Ikhlas comes through zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When a person they remember Allah, they cut themselves from makhluk. They're thinking about Allah, their gaze is fixed on Allah, they're tawajjuh ilallah, ruju ilallah. Remembrance is general, that you keep remembering Allah all the time. Every single organ that we have, it has a function. The function of our eyes is to see. The function of our ears is to listen. The function of our tongue is to taste, to speak. In the same way, the heart that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given all of us, the function of this heart, this qalb, the spiritual heart, the function of this qalb is to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can be engaged in the dunya, work in the dunya, engage the dunya, earn the dunya, but your heart, the function of the heart is to remember Allah. Your heart should be preoccupied with the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Use your hands in the dunya, but your heart should be doing its function, fulfilling its purpose. The heart should be in the yad of Allah, the remembrance of Allah, the dhikr of Allah. Every moment, every moment, every moment. This is the mashq, the practice that we have to do over and over again to become people whose hearts are remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala every single moment. Our hearts are perpetually attached to Allah, connected to Allah, thinking about Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this ability. All of us have that ability. A very simple example, that if the mother, she loses her child, then the child becomes lost, khuda na khasta. Now the mother, she will be eating food, she will be drinking water, but in her heart she will be thinking about her son. She is doing things outwardly in the dunya, but her heart is remembering her son. In the same way, a mu'min is supposed to be doing the things of the dunya, but his heart or her heart is supposed to be remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just like a Windows operating system. You have the Windows operating system working in the background, and then you can open up Chrome, Microsoft Word, etc., etc. So we open up all these windows of the dunya, but in the background, the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that should be our windows. Every moment, the window of the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, heart should be remembering Allah, connected to Allah. This is what Allah says in Quran several places. This is called zikr kasir. This is what our mashayikh teach as wukuf qalbi, that you wukuf, like wukuf arafa, that you pause your heart on the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You pause your heart on the remembrance of Allah. What does that mean? that whatever activity you are doing in the dunya, just remember, just think that your heart is saying Allah, Allah, Allah. Keep your concentration on your heart, that your heart is saying Allah, Allah, Allah. And then you can be eating, and you can be talking, and you can be listening, and you can be drinking, and you can be sitting, and you can be standing, and you can be lying. You can be doing anything that you want in the dunya. But keep your focus on your heart, that your heart is saying Allah, Allah, Allah. This is what we have to practice. This is what Allah Ta'ala commands us in the Quran to practice. La tulhihim tijaratun wala bay'un an zikrillah. With this zikr, we will get ikhlas. With this zikr, a person will be able to leave those sins, those inner sins, those hidden sins, those sins of the khalwat. And hence this zikr will lead that person to get taqwa. Taqwa is number 4. It's a chain. Adab, ilm, zikr and taqwa. And that person who gets taqwa, taqwa is khair. Taqwa is the kunji. It's the key for all khair. La'allakum tattaqun. You get taqwa, you will get hidayah. You get taqwa, you will get barakah. You get taqwa, you get najat. You get taqwa, you will get ikhraj, an exit from every difficulty. You get taqwa, you get mahbubiyat. You get taqwa, you get makbuliyat. You get taqwa, you get ma'iyat. Taqwa. Taqwa means that you leave the outward sins, but you also leave those inward sins. You leave every single last drop of sin. The zahir, the batin, sinful thoughts, sinful feelings. And this is precisely the reason why zikr is so essential. Because zikr polishes a person from the inside. Zikr is deep cleaning. Zikr removes this remembrance of Allah. When you're thinking about Allah, you will be protecting yourself from the wasawis of shaitan. This is again Quran. Shaitan only puts that waswasa on that person's heart whose heart is ghafil, whose heart is heedless, whose heart is forgetful, whose heart is absent from the zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yani if you have the zikr of Allah, you have a protective layer. Shaitan will not be able to put that waswasa. It's your armor, it's your shield, will protect you again from the wasawis of shaitan. So we have to become people of zikr. We have to become people of taqwa. And when you have taqwa, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you qubuliyat. Innama yataqabbal Allahu minal muttaqin. That Allah only accepts from the muttaqin. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you opportunity to do khidmat ad-deen, and Allah will accept that khidmat ad-deen from you. Khidmat ad-deen, then this is number 5. Khidmat ad-deen in the way that Allah becomes razi with you. Khidmat ad-deen in the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes that acceptable. Allah accepts it from you. Not the way that we do khidmat ad-deen, the way we want to do it. This is that khidmah, that a person does work of deen. Allah provides opportunities to do work of deen, and Allah accepts that work that a person does. If a person doesn't have these elements, if you don't have adab, ilm, zikr, taqwa, then the khidmah that a person does, they won't enjoy that khidmat. You will be doing, you will be reading, you will be teaching, but you won't feel any barakah in that khidmat. That khidmah will seem like a boj, a burden, an obligation, some responsibility, like a burden. You won't be enjoying it. But when you have taqwa, when you have zikr, when you have ilm, when you have adab, now the khidmah that you do, you will enjoy it. There will be maza, there will be lazzat. You will have shara sadr in your heart. You will feel maza. You will run to do khidmat of deen. You will tire yourself in doing khidmat of deen, and you will still fall back in doing khidmat of deen. And Allah will give qubuliyat to such work. Allah will give qubuliyat, sharf qubuliyat. You will be getting so much maza and enjoyment in deen that you will want to do nothing else except deen. You will be opening your eyes and thinking deen, doing deen, serving deen, and the whole day you will be spending doing deen, And then when you go to sleep, you will wish that I wish I could have done more about this deen. I wish I could have served more people. I wish I could have done more khidmat of this deen. Yani, deen becomes your orna, your bichona. Deen becomes your cover. Deen becomes the most beloved thing in your life. You're willing to make any and every sacrifice for the sake of deen. Not, you love it. It's your beloved. It's the most beloved thing that you have. You look forward to doing work of deen. It's something which gives you enjoyment and pleasure and rahat and lazzat and farhat. Allah Akbar Kabira. There's a very, very big alim, Sheikhul Hadith, Ustazul Ulama, who passed away a few years ago in Pakistan, in Karachi. None of you perhaps may know of him. Maulana Salimullah Khan Sahib Rahmatullah Alayh. Hazrat Maulana Salimullah Khan Sahib Rahmatullah Alayh. He was the teacher of Mufti Rafi Sahib, Mufti Taqi Usmani Damad Barakatuh Malalia. A very, very, very senior muhaddis who was the teacher of many renowned scholars currently teaching in Pakistan. Hazrat Maulana Salimullah Khan Sahib Rahmatullah Alayh. He passed away a few years ago in Karachi. When it was his last illness, some of his students, they took him to the hospital. And he was unconscious for a few days in the hospital. Finally, when he regained some consciousness, he opened his eyes. He asked his students that, where have you brought me? Oh, where have you brought me? And the student said that, Hazrat, this is a hospital. And then he said that, take me back. Take me back and put Bukhari in front of me. Allahu Akbar Kabira. This sentence, Ajeeb sentence. There is so much lazzat in this sentence, we can't even describe. Take me back. Where have you brought me? Take me back. Take me back. Put Bukhari in front of me. Put Bukhari in front of me. Ajeeb, Ajeeb. He was the Ustad Bukhari. So many years. He would be giving Dars Bukhari. And take me back. Just open Bukhari in front of me. That would be sufficient for me. This is maza. This is lazzat. This is kubuliyat. He lived up to more than 100 years, and this was his state. More than 100 years old, and Allah Akbar Kabira. Last illness, and he's thinking about Bukhari Sharif. This is maza. But the way a person gets this, there is 5 elements. We need to become people of adab, people of ilm, zikr, taqwa, and then khidmat. And some of us may be lacking in one of these things. Whatever we are lacking in, we have to do mehnat. Someone might be lacking in their adab. Someone may be lacking in their zikr. Someone may be lacking in their taqwa. And there might be some people who are lacking in all of these 5 elements. If you only have khidmat, you're teaching Quran, Hadith, but you don't feel the azmat of the hukum of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that teaching is of no benefit. That ilm that you know but you don't practice, that ilm is of no benefit. Al-ilmu bila amalin ka shajri bila samarin. Ilm without amal is like a tree without fruits. It's no benefit, no faida, no value, no worth, no wazan, no weight. That khidmah is useless. It's no benefit. When we are teaching something but our own ears don't listen, how will other people listen? When we are teaching the Quran but the hukum of the azmat of Allah, the azmat of the hukum of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not in our hearts, then how can we convey that azmat to other people? We should be worried about this. That whenever we break the hukum of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we should realize that I broke the hukum of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should have that azmat of the hukum of Allah in our hearts. The azmat of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in our hearts. I left the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I left the hukum of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Azim Allah, Azim hukum, Azim Rasulullah, Azim sunnah of Nabi alayhi salam. Azim thing. I left it. We should feel that azmat. Azim Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The azmat of Allah. Allahu Akbar Kabira. Allah, Azim, Azim Zat. And that Azim Zat who is my Malik, my Khalik, my Razik, my everything, the Razik of everyone, the Khalik of everything, Malik of everything, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I disobeyed that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's command, I should be shivering, I should be trembling, I should be quivering. I shouldn't be able to sleep during the night. Then what did I just do? I should throw myself in sajda, make tawbah to Allah. Allah, please forgive me. Make istighfar to Allah. Allah, please have mercy upon me. Accept my tawbah. I don't want to repeat this. Allah, ask you for forgiveness. Ask you for rahmah. Ask you for maghfirah. Ask you, Allah, to accept my tawbah. We should be trembling and quivering and throwing ourselves in sajda before Allah. Then what have I done? So we should try to become people who have this azmat of the hukum of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our heart. Normally, the reason why we don't have this azmat is because we are used to cutting corners in our deen. We cut corners. We cut corners of the Sharia. We cut corners on the deen. This is something which happens to almost all of us. And this is shaitan. Shaitan's multiple ways. He traps those people who are non-practicing with a whole outright sins, open sins. That's the whole world of just outright open sins. For those people who are practicing, who don't do those outwardly apparent sins, Shaitan comes up with this other way. You cut corners in our deen. We make compromises in our deen. In English also we use this word. You say that your values have been compromised, your integrity has been compromised. That's what we do. Sometimes we compromise our deen. We compromise Sharia. We compromise in small things. Those small things become big. We compromise. We respect the rules of this world so much, but we don't respect the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's funny. It's funny that how much we respect the rules of the dunya. The rules of our clothing. The different pieces of clothing that people buy. Machine wash cold, machine wash warm, machine wash hot. And probably most people don't really care about the temperature, and maybe they just wash it. But if it says dry clean only, well, that person will never ever 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 put their clothing into a washing machine, because they have been given a rule that this clothing should only be dry cleaned, and they will never dream, they will never think about putting that clothing in water. Well, in the same way, Allah also gives us rules. And if you look, that if only we could learn to respect Allah Ta'ala's rules the way we respect the rules of our clothing. In the dunya we respect the rules. We don't bend the rules of our job, at work. Extremely strict about those rules. Your boss says 9 a.m. you have to be at work. Every day we make sure, every day for months, for years, he will be there at 9 a.m. So just like when you have this attitude that is non-compromising to the rules of this world, we should have that same non-compromising attitude towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rules. I cannot compromise on these rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Many times we compromise, and we compromise in so many different ways. We compromise in so many different aspects of our deen. Marriage, people compromise. The Prophet ﷺ said that, taught us that marry first and foremost basis on taqwa, on the basis of other person's deen. But many times parents compromise on the level of deen because they're seeking some other attribute. Maybe they're looking at the person's money or their family background or something else. But when they make that compromise, what's going to be the result? What's going to be the result? Well, for the girl, she can have a whole lifetime of sadness sometimes. In extreme cases, a whole lifetime of suffering. And in the minor cases, a whole lifetime in which she is with someone who does not have the same religious dreams and desires as she does. Just one compromise, and people are thinking of divorce. You look at business, how you treat an employee, how to respect your boss, we compromise. If you look at parents and children relationship, people are compromising. If you look at a teacher-student relationship, people are compromising. Every time we compromise, we are cutting corners. We're giving ourselves some slack. Some people compromise on what they eat. They'll be traveling or in their airplane or in some non-Muslim country. They'll compromise, they'll be a bit less strict. And give them some leeway and eat something which is maybe doubtful. This compromising and cutting corners, this is the disease of our nafs. And again, I'm highlighting this because this is something which the mashayikh, they want to work, they want to eliminate. This is the role of the mashayikh. They want to treat this illness of the nafs. Then when we try to loosen these, we have these loose knobs, loose nuts. Mashayikh are those individuals who try to screw these nuts tight. They try to tighten these loose nuts. When we have these rough edges in our deen, they try to remove the roughness, they try to polish it. Ragada. And that's why people don't want to come to the mashayikh. They don't want to do rabata with the mashayikh because they don't want to be roughed up, they want to be purified. But that's the job of the mashayikh. That's what they want to do. That's what they're tasked to do. That's what they're obligated to do. That when a person comes with their loose knots, with their loose knobs, when they see that the car has these loose knobs, if they don't tighten them, the car is going to collapse. The wheel is going to come out. It's their job to tighten and screw them properly. To tighten the screws properly. But what can we say about that person who doesn't want the screws to be tightened? When they see the rough edges, they want to remove the roughness. They want to polish it. Ragada. But what can we say about that person who doesn't even present himself or herself to get that ragada, to get that polish? Many people don't understand why the mashayikh, they insist that you discipline your nafs so intensely. What do mashayikh do? This is what they do. That when we are cutting corners, when we are compromising on our deen, they try to remove those corners. They try to remove those edges. They try to tighten those loose nuts. But for that, we have to have a taluk with them. We have to open up with them. We have to have a relation connection with them. We have to be willing. We have to become people who are willing that we can be tightened. We have to become people who are willing that we can be polished. We have to become people who are willing that we can be done, some ragada can be done upon us. But again, the nafs is so big and so strong that we don't want to get that ragada. We don't want to get that polishing. We don't want to even hear anything from our teachers, let alone telling them to discipline us. Our nafs is so strong. Our nafs is so heavy. We're people who are so full of our nafs that we don't want to do anything that will subdue our nafs. But this nafs is what causes all the sins in our life. It causes us leads us to compromise on our deen. And this is what the science of tasawwuf is. This purification of the nafs. This was the science that all the practicing Muslims throughout history have been doing, because they recognized All of the people were the students of Mashaykh and Tasawwuf for the first 1200, 1300 years of Islam. They were people, all of them. They were people, and many of them were already on the farais and wajibat. They were already on the farais, already doing their wajibat, already doing sunnahs. And even those people needed to get this treated so intensely for their nafs. So we should just imagine that in this day and age that we are living in, where we are nowhere near as firmly established on the farais, wajibat and sunnahs, plus we are living in an environment that has so much more sin, we should all the more be wanting this training of that nafs. We want to be trained, disciplined. And what is ajib is that we see that the mashayikh, their teachings, actually they don't train the nafs so intensely. And this is ajib. The exercises that are given today to train a person's nafs, they're much, 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 much softer and lighter. Those light practices are also going to be enough, because today we don't have that capacity. Allah has made it easy. Allah has made this process easy for us. This process of tazkiyah easy for us today. That with little himmat, with little mujahida, with little tazkiyah, we can get a nafs mutma'inna. But even that little becomes more for us. Even that little becomes difficult for us. But that little has to be done. That is part of it. That's the battle. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. The falah depends on this tazkiyah. So really sometimes we feel when we are speaking at the university and talking to different students, we feel that today if a person really wants to be successful, really deeply successful in deen, in sunnah, in sharia, and especially in tazkiyah, the Muslims today, they have to live a life of a stranger. Really, you have to live in this world like a stranger. Kun fi dunya ka'annaka gharib aw abiru sabil. Be in this world like a stranger. All of these things that are going on in this world, we need to be completely unaware of them. In terms of what I mean by things like the media, fashion, society, culture. We should withdraw, not necessarily withdraw from them in body, but to withdraw more and more from them in terms of spirit, in terms of our lifestyle, in outlook, in our demeanor. And the more we are able to withdraw, the stronger that person will be on their iman and in their deen. And when you will find examples even today, alhamdulillah, people living in major cities in the world who are functioning as professionals or engineers or teachers or doctors. But if you look at their lifestyle, if you look at their evenings, you look at their weekends, their social circle, people who they're interacting with, who they're spending time with, even during the daytime, who emails them or who calls them, you will find that they're complete strangers to this world. They're living as if they're completely another world altogether. Life of a stranger. And really that's how we are supposed to be like. That's what the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith. And the more and whatever extent we try to merge and assimilate this world around us, that's going to be harmful for our spirituality. It's going to be only harmful to our deen. We cannot let this dunya become a part of us. And a lot of times people, even when they're interacting with the non-Muslims, no doubt we're supposed to be respectful, polite, kind, professional with non-Muslims, but in the name of being respectful and polite and kind and sincere, sometimes a person gets overly friendly and tries to assimilate themselves, even mimicking the same language, the same body language, the same fashion, society, culture, lifestyle. And that's what Allah Ta'ala has told in the Quran we should not do. We have to maintain our own persona, our own identity, our own character, our own personality. We cannot allow ourselves to cut any corners on that. Our deen, our millat has to be served, has to be saved and preserved. Another example is gender interaction. People interacting in universities, hospitals, workplaces, schools, or even in some cases, to be honest, Muslim schools, Muslim educational institutions, whether it's the US, whether it's Canada, and I'm assume something similar will be happening in the UK or South Africa. This increasing lack of proper gender norms and gender etiquettes in our own Muslim institutions and Muslim gatherings. Same thing with men also. Person cuts corners, and I'll say the same thing for the men, right? That when you cut corners in the sunnah, the first, the man, he cuts the sunnah, they trim their beard, they don't always cover their hair, don't always wear the sunnah dress, and it starts, right? There's no end to it whatsoever. So again, the Mashaykh, they saw these things, and it's not because the Mashaykh are rigid. They saw that we are slacking. They want us to eliminate all these bad aspects of our life, this hawa, and have a life of haya, to remove this ammara nafs and make this a mutma'inna nafs. And that's what the project is. And this requires sabr. Right? Khair, we have run out of time, but this is sabr. One aspect of sabr is that we should not cut corners. Sabr, sabr. We think about sabr that only when some huge disaster comes upon us, and then we should have sabr. But even these small things that we have, the little tests that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends our way, the constant whisperings of shaitan, the constant temptations of the nafs, the constant desire to give in and compromise on the deen. When we keep cutting corners, when we keep compromising on them, we are actually giving in to our nafs. We are lacking sabr in all these instances. So we should try to build up that sabr in our life, every day, every night, and we make dua to Allah Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala grant us the ability to have great sabr. May Allah Ta'ala enable each and every one of us to be steadfast on our deen. May Allah Ta'ala grant each and every one of us the ability to follow the Sharia. May Allah Ta'ala make us people of adab, make us people of ilm, make us people of zikr, make us people of taqwa, and out of His rahmah and mercy, may Allah Ta'ala accept us for the khidmat of this deen in a way that is pleasing in His sight. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Before we make dua, we'll make a short silent zikr of the heart for a few minutes. Close your eyes and bow your head. Disconnect yourself from everything else in this world and make niyat intention that, Ya Allah, you have said in Quran, Fazukuruni azkurkum, that remember me and I will remember you. Ya Allah, Ya Rabbi Kareem, we are remembering you deep inside of our hearts. And Allah, we ask you that you remember us by showering your rahmah, your hidayah, your barakah, your karam, your fazl, your tajalliyat, your anwarat upon our heart. And Ya Allah, our heart in gratitude and shukr is calling upon your Ism Azam, Ism Jalala, Allah, as if my heart is secretly, silently saying, Allah, Allah, Allah. ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Make dua. Subhan Rabbil al-Wahhab. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammadin wa barik wa sallim. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. اللهم إنا نسألك حبك وحب من يحبك وحب من يقربنا إليك. اللهم إنا نسألك إيمانا كاملا ويقينا صادقا ورزقا واسعا وقلبا خاشعا ولسانا ذاكرا ورزقا حلالا طيبا وتوبة قبل الموت وراحة عند الموت ومغفرة ورحمة بعد الموت والعفو عند الحساب والفوز بالجنة والنجاة من النار برحمتك يا عزيز برحمتك يا غفار. رب زدني علما وألحقني بالصالحين. اللهم إنا نسألك من خير ما سألك منه عبدك ونبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعبادك الصالحون، ونعوذ بك من شر ما استعاذك منه عبدك ونبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعبادك الصالحون، وأنت المستعان وعليك البلاغ. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. ربنا تقبل منا ربنا تقبل منا ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا وتب علينا وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وأزواجه وذرياته وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.